To understand these principles, you need to understand the substance we fly in. Air. Birds, balloons, and fighter jets all fly in the sea of air we call our atmosphere. Gravity holds the atmosphere to the Earth, the same way it holds you to the ground. Since we live in it and can't see it, it's easy to forget that air has weight and substance, and that it flows and has pressure, just like water does. If you happen to be at sea level, you're carrying around about the weight of a compact car on your shoulders. You don't feel it because you're supported by equal air pressure on all sides. And if you dive to the bottom of the swimming pool, you can feel the pressure increase. Well, it's the same with air. Pressure increases at the bottom because there's more stuff on top. But the light bulb really goes on once you understand how the air and a wing work together.
But then there's a moment that it all comes together, and I think prior to that moment, where you're putting the aspects of flying together, seems the hardest on you at that time. Because you understand this and you understand that, and but then how do they correlate? And then finally, at one moment, you see why at a certain speed, suddenly total lift is possible.
John Travolta's been flying since he was 16.
Off and retracted.
He's logged over 4,000 hours since then and now flies his own Learjet, Gulfstream II, and a Canadian fighter jet back and forth to shooting locations.
Cabin's climbing.
He gets asked a lot of questions about how lift works.
People ask me continually, I don't understand how a plane that heavy can get in the air. And then I always tell them to, when they're driving, you know, at least 30 miles an hour, if it's safe to do so, roll down your window, stick your hand out.
This is something that every child has done who has at least thought about lift. When I thrust my hand out the window and turned my hand down like this and deflected some air, it forced my hand up.
The air flows faster over the top of your hand than it does under the bottom, just like it does over a bird or plane wing.
And by cambering it, in other words, giving it a shape of this bird's wing, for example, where you have some curvature in it, you can get even a sensation of more lift.
As the speed of a fluid-like air increases, the pressure decreases. And finally, the payoff. The faster-moving air over the top of the wing exerts lower pressure, so that the higher pressure air underneath the wing pushes up and gives us lift. For the air to flow faster over the top of the wing, it has to hit the wing at a particular angle. This is angle of attack.
So in airplanes, what we say operating range, or its angle of attack range in which it makes lift, is actually quite small. It's only about 10 degrees. Whereas 90 degrees is straight up, only about 11% of that from horizontal to straight up is actually used.
So there's a thin line between lift and stall.
For example, if an airplane's maneuvered too much, then it becomes nonlinear. In other words, if you pull back further, it doesn't get more lift. It has a stall, and then it does bad things.
Down we go. 40, 50, 60. It's going to be a while. 75. Recover.
Pilots are trained to know how to avoid becoming nonlinear. Still, stalls happen. Whether they're studying linear or nonlinear flight, airplane designers examine airfoils, which look like a wing slice, to see how air will flow around them.
Now, actually, the hand is a very poor wing, as you might expect. It's draggy because it's blunt. A perfect airfoil is very round, like this on the front, and sharp, thin on the back, and smooth. So a beautiful wing, like you find on a sailplane or a high-performance airplane, is mainly impressive because of its drag rather than because of its lift. It has very low drag.
Laminar flow, air moving smoothly over a surface, is what the experts dream about. Engineers in the 30s called it streamlining. The term entered the language, and the technique inspired decades of design. Box shapes were banished and curves were in. One of America's preeminent streamliners is Burt Rutan. In stark contrast to the pyramid he lives in, he conjures up planes with curved, flowing lines.
When I'm designing a wing, I think first about what I want to do with the air. If I want an airplane to be very efficient, I take a lot of air and move it just a little bit down. And you do that with a long wing airplane. A short wing airplane, like a fighter that has real short wings, it has to take less air and move it more energetically down. And in doing so, it's not as efficient. It causes more drag.
And walked out of the jungle. Said, "Oh my
Rutan designed these planes so that you could build one in your garage. A cross between a Wasp and a Star Wars fighter. Rutan named this horizontally challenged plane the Long EZ. Pilots called it a clean ship because it's streamlined. And it doesn't have lots of struts and wires sticking out to cause drag. Another one of Rutan's attempts at turning the world of aviation upside down. Some people actually enjoy this kind of thing.
I like to take off, roll inverted, and fly out to my practice area. It gives me a much better view of everything anyway. So, and I like to be upside down. It stretches my back out and feels good.
As long as the angle of attack is right, it doesn't matter which surface of the wing is facing up. But aerobatic planes are designed to fly upside down.
The shape of the wing is very specific to an aerobatic airplane in that it's considered symmetrical, so that the airflow is the same whether you're upright or inverted. So you can fly the plane inverted almost in the same attitude with the same nose position as you can when you're upright.
So we've learned how to fly inverted, fly faster, and fly higher, surpassing the birds in the sky. But some still look to nature's flying creatures for inspiration.
I think all pilots are inspired by nature and inspired by birds. And a lot of times when I'm up flying, I'll see a bird sort of circling around a hawk, maybe watching me, or an eagle sometimes. Yeah, and we're all kind of jealous of them too, because they do it so effortlessly.